Has anyone ever had problems making choices or decisions before? In a previous episode, we talked about programmed and non-programmed decisions and the difference between them. The first one being a programmed decision, which is something that you've made before. It's kind of almost muscle memory. You know what the results are going to be. But then you have the non-programmed decisions, those issues that arise which you're just not sure what's supposed to happen and you need to make the decision. Sometimes those are hard to do. You may be overwhelmed with too much information. You may not have enough information. Regardless of what the issue is, the decision still needs to be made. So we're going to kind of look at ways to help us understand how to make a decision. Not necessarily a better one, because again, we won't necessarily know what that is until we are done making the decision. But to kind of help us make the decision. Okay? So we're going to talk about 7 steps. There's essentially a way, kind of a roadmap, so to speak, in reference to helping you make some of those decisions. The first one being kind of laying out the facts. What's going on? Let's talk about the who, the what, the where, the when. All of these things are just kind of the gathering of the information. Perhaps you can find that information yourself. Perhaps you need to talk to other people, other employees to kind of gather that information. As a manager, you're not by yourself. You have other individuals that can provide you with some of this information. And guess what, folks? There's probably a lot of other people out there that have the information and are a lot smarter regarding that issue than you might be. So don't discard your employees' ability to answer some of the questions. That's the first one, facts. Gather up the information. The second step, cause. This one, in my opinion, is where most managers are going to fail. They're going to skip it. Okay? This is the idea of the root cause. What is essentially creating this issue? And I'll give you an example. Okay? I've used this example in the past when I've talked to my employees before. It's like, okay, here's the scenario. I walk through the door, I'm standing in the room, and I'm bleeding from my arm. What's the problem? Perhaps the first thing that comes into your mind when you hear that is like, you're bleeding. That's a result. That's not the problem. Don't get me wrong, it is a problem. I bleed long enough, I'm going to die. But we're not talking about that. We're saying, okay, we can see a result of something and immediately think that's the problem. Unfortunately, if that's as far as you go, you will put a Band-Aid on that cut on my arm from my scenario, and you think the problem's solved. But yet when I walk through that door again tomorrow, I might be bleeding again. And I put another Band-Aid on, and the third day I do it, and the fourth, and so on and so on and so on. You get the idea. Before you begin to realize that the cut is not the problem, perhaps there's something on the door. Perhaps there's a nail sticking out. Perhaps something is creating my bleeding arm. That's the cause. Don't forget to look deeper. You already have the facts. That was step 1. Step 2 is trying to find the cause of those issues. You can solve the immediate result. Don't forget about the root cause. Step 3. What choices do you have? Let's think ethics. Is it morally right to do? Is it ethically right to do? Is it illegal to do? What are all the choices? Think of yourself as like a funnel. Okay, we have this big funnel in front of us, and we're going to throw in all of these different ideas, and we're going to trickle them all the way through. We're going to filter them, okay, which is actually step 4 when we start evaluating all of those different choices. The more choices that you can provide to yourself, the better opportunity that you have to come up with a more worthwhile decision. Don't forget that. If you're just going to come up with one, well, that's not a whole lot of options, is it? 2, 3, more, 5, 6, whatever, and then you start evaluating them. And most of us are very familiar with perhaps the easiest type of determination, the pros and cons, right? You kind of split your page down the half and write a plus on one side and minus on the other. Say this works, this one don't, and you kind of go through, and then you count them and say, well, I have more in the positive column than I do in the negative, which means that is probably a good decision. You might be right. Just because you evaluate something doesn't mean that you're going to come to a single good decision. You may have 4 or 5 of them that will work. That's where the evaluation comes. Then we determine it's like, okay, I'm going to try this one. Remember that unprogrammed decision? I'm going to try this one. We're going to choose it. So many managers get hooked up on this idea of trying to find the perfect answer, and they never stop looking for the perfect answer. Unfortunately, if they don't stop, they never make the decision either. You have to choose. You have the options in front of you. You've gathered your information. You've evaluated it. Now pick one. Right, wrong, or otherwise, pick one. Once you do that, then you can put it into play. Right? Just because you pick something doesn't mean that your employees know exactly what you're thinking, right? They can't read your mind as much as you wish they could. So now you have to plan. It's like, okay, I picked this one. What does that mean? Okay, I have to get this person to be able to do it in this manner or at this time, and I have to talk to this department. I have to talk to this person, so on and so on. That's kind of putting it into practice. It's taking the tactics and putting into the operational plan and to implement it. At that point, you are now already on step 7, which is follow-up or evaluate. Did it work? That's an easy question to ask. So I decided to do something, I did it, and it didn't work. Okay, do you think you learned anything from that? Just the fact that it's like, I chose this, it didn't work. Well, don't choose that one again. Going back to the process, go back up to the information. Start those 7 processes over again. Look for the facts, determine the root cause, make a choice. Okay? Right? Evaluate that choice is what's going to take. Choose it. Okay? Once I pick that choice, plan it, evaluate it. Go right back up around again. You're going to come to a point where you're going to actually successfully complete whatever it is that you're trying to solve. When you do that, it now has the ability to become a program decision. So now we look at this and it's like, oh great, Steve, you just told me about 7 steps. I'm never going to remember the 7 steps. Big deal. What does that have to do with a certification? What does that have to do with ICPM? Well, let me put it to you this way. The more information that you know, the better equipped you are to make the decisions which are going to set you apart from everybody else. And the ability to prove to them that you do know what you're talking about is based upon that certification. The examination is going to determine whether or not you have kind of thought that, the critical thinking, the thought process that you're going through to make the decisions, which are to do a couple of things. One, to make you a better decision maker, to make you a better problem solver, to make you a better manager. And on top of that, with the certification, you're proving to the world that you do know what you're talking about. That certification is validating your skills and experiences. You've been there, you've done that. Tell the world about it through the certification, whether that's a certified supervisor or whether that's a certified manager. Regardless, you're telling everyone else that sees you that you know what you're talking about.